Development of the M60 Patton main battle tank commenced in 1957 as a response to rumors of a new Soviet main battle tank equipped with a formidable 115mm smoothbore main gun. This Soviet tank, later revealed as the T-62, posed a threat to the existing M48 Patton series, which was the mainstay of the American armored forces at the time. The T-62 officially entered service in 1961 and saw extensive production, with over 22,000 units manufactured for the Red Army and its allies. Numerous variants of the T-62 emerged, operated by various countries, and the tank participated in combat operations from the 1969 Sino-Soviet Border War to the 2011 Libyan Civil War. While not without its flaws, the M60 proved to be a robust and reliable performer during its more than 50 years of operational service. In consideration of both expediency and cost, it was determined that modifying the existing M48 systems would best accommodate the evolving demands of the modern battlefield. The foundation of the M48 was enhanced by integrating a new, more potent engine paired with a cross-drive transmission system, while the renowned British L7 main gun was installed onto a new turret. Refinements to the hull included straighter contours, and aluminum wheels replaced the M48 steel ones. Although the general turret shape of the M48 was retained initially, gradual modifications were made to create a more distinct, streamlined form, thereby reducing both front and rear profiles. Initially designated as the M68, the design was later renamed the more recognizable M60. While not officially branded as Patton in its formal listing within the U.S. Army, 105mm gun full-tracked combat tank, M60, it was widely acknowledged as part of the Patton lineage that originated with the M46, with all Pattons, M46, M47, and M48, tracing their roots back to the late World War II era M26 Pershing heavy tank. Production of the M60 commenced in 1959 at the Chrysler Delaware Defense Plant, with the first units being assembled and stocked in 1960. Subsequently, production shifted to the Chrysler Detroit Tank Plant in Michigan, continuing until 1987, resulting in the manufacture of approximately 15,000 units. Notably, the M60 marked the U.S. Army's transition to the concept of the main battle tank, signaling the abandonment of its World War II-era classifications of light, medium, and heavy tanks. The M60 represented a typical example of a first-generation main battle tank, adhering to conventional design principles of its era. Its frontal hull boasted a well-sloped glassy plate, complemented by a shallow hull superstructure. While the engine compartment slightly bulged the rear hull roof, it remained short enough to accommodate the turret overhang, enabling full 360-degree traverse for engaging enemy targets from any direction. Mounted on a torsion bar suspension system, the M60 featured 6 double-tired road wheels per side, with the drive sprocket positioned at the rear and the track idler at the front of the hull. 3 track return rollers guided the track along the upper hull sides, with a thin fender-type installation covering the top facing of the tracks, providing space for stowage and storage boxes. The centrally located turret atop the hull roof boasted thick, well-sloped sides for basic ballistics protection, while the gun extended over all sides of the tank in the traditional manner. A distinguishing feature of the M60 series was the commander's cupola positioned to the right of the turret roof, capable of operating as a separate, mini turret. Armor protection measured 155mm at its thickest, equivalent to just over 6 inches, with the hull constructed of homogeneous steel. Crewed by 4 personnel, including the driver seated in the front hull at the center, and the tank commander, gunner, and loader positioned in the turret, with the gunner and commander to the right of the gun and the loader to their left. The loader had his own dedicated entry/exit hatch. Notably, the M60 was the last American tank to incorporate a floor-mounted escape hatch, a feature not carried over to the modern-day M1 Abrams series. The primary armament of the M60 centered around the M68 105mm main gun, with the exception of the M60A2 variant, which utilized the M162 152mm main gun, detailed below. Complementing this main gun was a 7.62mm M73 series machine gun coaxially mounted in the turret next to the main gun, operated by the gunner. This secondary weapon facilitated engagement of soft targets such as infantry, which posed a significant threat to tanks, especially at close range. Positioned at the commander's cupola was an M85 12.7mm heavy machine gun, specifically designed to counter low-flying aircraft, including helicopters, as well as light armored ground vehicles. Together, these armaments provided the M60 with comprehensive firepower and defense capabilities. Additionally, smoke grenade dischargers were later installed on the turret sides, while the engine had the capability to produce smoke for offensive and defensive tactical maneuvers as required. The M60 boasted a weight of 50 short tons and a running length exceeding 30 feet with the gun positioned forward. Its width approached nearly 12 feet, while its height stood at 10 feet, 6.5 inches, presenting a relatively tall profile for a combat tank, a characteristic that garnered consistent criticism throughout its service life. Propulsion was provided by a single Continental AVDS 1790-2 V12 air-cooled twin-turbo diesel engine, delivering 750 horsepower. Paired with a General Motors cross-drive single-stage transmission offering 2 forward and 1 reverse speeds, the M60 achieved a top road speed of approximately 30 miles per hour and an operational range of 300 miles. While performance met acceptable standards, it remained a persistent point of contention for critics of the series. As technology advanced, the evolving battlefield posed new threats, rendering systems developed in the late 1950s outdated in the face of newer, more efficient engineering and materials. Consequently, vehicles like the M60 gradually underwent updates to counter the emerging threats reported from the Soviet Union. In 1963, the M60A1 was introduced, featuring a redesigned turret with increased internal space, along with improvements to the suspension system and armor protection. Produced until 1980, this variant was succeeded by the M60A2, known as the Starship, which featured a notably different, lower-profile turret housing a distinct commander's cupola. A significant aspect of this model was the adoption of the 152mm main gun, also utilized by the M551 Sheridan air-droppable tank, enabling compatibility with the MGM-51 Shillelagh anti-tank missile. The M60A2 was developed to bridge the gap between the M60A1 and the American-German MBT-70 project, which ultimately did not materialize. Consequently, the M60A2 had a brief production run, as the M60A3 became the next standard iteration. Many M60A2s were converted to the A3 variant, while others were repurposed as specialist battlefield vehicles such as bridge layers. The M60A3, designated as the most advanced American main battle tank in service during the early 1980s, received several enhancements. These included stabilization and a thermal sleeve for its M68 105mm main gun, a ballistics computer for precision targeting, a thermal sight for the gunner, improved functionality of the coaxial machine gun, an air filtration system, revised searchlight function, an upgraded power plant, and an improved Raytheon laser rangefinder. External smoke dischargers were added along the turret sides, supplemented by an internal smoke generation system powered by the engine, a feature also utilized by many Soviet tanks. These improvements brought the M60 family closer to matching the capabilities of the contemporary Soviet threat, particularly the T-72 main battle tank, and in some aspects, it still compared favorably to the newer M1 Abrams, which was beginning to enter U.S. inventory. The M60A3 remained in service with the U.S. military until 1997. M60A3 production variants labeled as M60A3 TTS denoted their utilization of the N/VSG-2 thermal system. Throughout the operational lifespan of the M60, various subvariants of major models emerged, each featuring subtle additions and modifications to the base designs. For instance, within the M60A1 production run, variants such as the M60A1 AOS, add-on stabilization, and M60A1 Rise, reliability improvements for selected equipment, were developed. Additionally, there was an M60A1 Rise passive variant equipped with explosive reactive armor, ERA, blocks for enhanced armor protection. The M60 chassis also served as the basis for specialized Army vehicles, including a mine clearer, bulldozer, a bridge layer, AVLB, and the M728 combat engineering vehicle. Designations featuring E markings in the U.S. Army nomenclature indicated experimental forms, such as the M60A1E1, M60A1E2, M60A1E3, and M60A1E4. These variants typically incorporated experimental weaponry for evaluation purposes and rarely progressed to serial production. However, the M60A1E2 eventually evolved into the M60A2 production model. Foreign operators were also at liberty to assign their own designations as needed. The initial deployment of the M60 in U.S. service occurred during the Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975, albeit in specialized roles such as the AVLB bridge layer and M728 CEV, combat engineering vehicle. These variants, utilizing the M60 chassis and hull, expanded the tactical versatility of the M60 combat system while also being logistically and financially practical. However, no combat-ready M60 tanks were deployed to the region during the conflict. Similar to the Soviet T-62, the American M60 found extensive sales overseas to US-friendly nations, becoming a staple in the arsenals of some NATO forces across Europe for a significant period. The M60 saw its first combat service during the Israeli Yom Kippur War of 1973, where it was employed by the Israeli Defense Forces alongside their existing fleet of M48 Pattons. Both the M60 and M60A1 variants were utilized during the conflict. Subsequently, upgraded versions featuring explosive reactive armor (ERA) blocks were employed during the Lebanon War of 1982, enhancing crew survivability by providing additional protection against incoming projectiles, missiles, and rocket grenades. The Israelis designated their upgraded M48S and M60S as Magak, with different variants denoted by numbers. Despite facing threats such as the T-62, which the M60 was originally designed to counter, the tank performed admirably in Israeli service. However, the most significant threat proved to be Soviet-made anti-tank missiles fired by ambush teams. Presently, the Israeli military maintains a significant number of modified M60s alongside their more modern Merkava main battle tanks, which serve as the primary armored platform. During the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, Iran, once an American ally, received 150 M60A1 production models, which were utilized during the conflict. However, their current status and service levels remain unknown. The M60's next significant deployment occurred during the Gulf War of 1991, Operation Desert Storm, where elements of the United States Marine Corps and the Royal Saudi Army employed the tank alongside its successor, the M1 Abrams MBT. In engagements against Iraqi T-62s, the M60 demonstrated its superiority, attributed in part to the superior training and experience of American tanker crews compared to their Iraqi counterparts. Additionally, by 1991, the M60 had undergone significant upgrades to adapt to the changing battlefield, whereas Iraqi T-62s had not. During the battle for Kuwait City, only one M60 was lost with no casualties. Even the U.S. Air Force operated a detachment of M60 tanks for ordnance disposal purposes during the conflict. The largest operators of the M60 to date include the Egyptian Army, the Turkish Army, and the Israeli Army, each capable of fielding several hundred to over 1,000 units. Other notable operators include Saudi Arabia, Iran, Thailand, and Portugal. Greece previously operated as many as 669 M60A1/A3s but has since retired them in favor of the German Leopard 1 and Leopard 2 MBTs. The Turkish Army, which currently possesses around 925 M60A1 and M60A3 models, has implemented an extensive modernization program to upgrade them to the newer M60T Sabra standard. These upgrades include an electrically stabilized 120mm smoothbore main gun, improved armor protection, and a modernized fire control system, sometimes known as the Sabra Mk3. For the United States military, the M60 series has been officially retired from operational service, replaced entirely by the M1 Abrams series. Some M60s have been placed in reserve status or storage, while others serve as outdoor exhibits at various military-related facilities.